This is the strangest Rust Belt city I've ever visited in America, because, as you can see, the old city streets are cleaner than New York's. The sun is shining. It could rival California. But you've probably also noticed the problem. There's almost no one here. You look at the waterfront, nobody. The business district, nobody. Even by the luxury cruise ship dock, there's no one. Where did all the people go? Cleveland is located in the northeastern part of Ohio, right on the southern shore of Lake Erie. It's a landmark of both America's modern economy and its culture. Economically, this is where oil tycoon John D. Rockefeller got his start. Culturally, it's the home of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a temple to the spirit of rebellion. You could say that if you're looking for a city in America that has produced both a world's richest man and is bursting with passion, Cleveland is pretty much the only one. But this star city, starting in the 1970s, lost over 40% of its population in just 30 years. It was nearly cut in half. So when you come here, you're struck by the contrast. On one side, a departed industry, and on the other, vast stretches of mansions. Today, we'll explore the second episode of our American Rust Belt City series, Cleveland, the prototype city of the American dream. Do its people still believe in the American dream today? In my architecture program, we had a course called Sustainable Urban Development, and the case study the professor used was Cleveland and its burning river. In June of 1969, due to industrial pollution and the dumping of oil and waste, the surface of the river actually caught fire. The ecosystem of Lake Erie was severely damaged. That was my impression of it before. But when I arrived in Cleveland, I was met with green trees and clear lake water. The Great Lakes are so vast they look like an ocean. You can't even see the other side. The spot where I'm filming this is on the far west side of the city. You can see the downtown skyline in one clear view. The air visibility is extremely high. Walking along the shore of Lake Erie, the water and sky merge into one. There's absolutely no trace of the horrific pollution from the petrochemical industry of the past. And speaking of oil, you must be thinking of the old man Rockefeller. What was it about Cleveland that gave him the opportunity to change his destiny? Next, I'll take you on a drive through downtown Cleveland. As you watch, compare it to what you imagined Cleveland would be like. And as we go, let's talk about the history of how the world's richest man, John D. Rockefeller, built his empire in this city. How did he recognize this as his destined place? The influence of the Rockefeller family goes far beyond just oil. Beyond his business success, he was instrumental in founding the University of Chicago, building the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, and funding the establishment of the Peking Union Medical College in Beijing. It was Rockefeller's steadfast commitment to philanthropy that gave us the modern public health and education systems we have today. And the starting point, this world-class billionaire, was right here in Cleveland. Like the Steel King Andrew Carnegie, who we discussed in Pittsburgh, Rockefeller came from a very poor family. He moved with his family from rural New York to Cleveland when he was very young. He started his career as a bookkeeper at the bottom of a company dealing with bank loans, infrastructure financing, and logistics. His life-changing year was 1859, when oil was discovered in Pennsylvania. Because he was already immersed in the world of commodity finance, he keenly recognized two unique business advantages that Cleveland possessed. First, Cleveland was right next to the Lake Erie shipping lanes that led to the eastern markets. Second, it was a railroad hub connecting to the vast markets of the Midwest. Rockefeller began acquiring refineries in Cleveland, consolidating production and lowering costs. Then, in 1870, he incorporated the Standard Oil Company right here in Cleveland. The companies we know today as ExxonMobil and Chevron were all once spin-offs from Standard Oil. So you could say that most of the capital in Cleveland today comes from the foundation that Rockefeller laid for this city. The windows, the glass is broken. So if old Rockefeller were still around, I think he would find it hard to accept that the Cleveland he single-handedly built up could later, in the changing industrial landscape, become part of America's Rust Belt, a problem that even money couldn't solve. And Cleveland, having lost its halo, how would it face the world anew? I've been to many American cities for industrial project research, and I've witnessed the revival of many. The cities that fail do so for various reasons, but the successful ones usually have one thing in common. They inherit their local traditions and then forge a new path, giving them more soul. I think Cleveland is one of those cities. For example, the old renovated district we've arrived at, the Flats, is now a model for the revitalization of old cities not just in the Rust Belt, but around the world. It has perfectly preserved the rugged stone block viaducts from its founding days. They built a small bridge. People from this building can get on the bridge. In its heyday, shipping was incredibly developed, and you would have seen these giant railway lift bridges one after another. Modern architects have optimized the use of these historic structures. They've preserved the bridge deck facilities and turned the area underneath into a waterfront promenade. And the surrounding docks, warehouses, and power plants, these beautiful red brick buildings, it would be a shame to tear them down, have been preserved, structurally reinforced, and transformed into very cool restaurants and entertainment venues. What seems like a matter-of-course design approach today was actually the result of many trials and tribulations over 3 to 4 decades of architectural and planning practice. This mix of old and new allows the city to retain its memory of the past. So when you see these glass curtain walls, modern yachts, and old red brick buildings together, combined with Cleveland's years of environmental cleanup, you can see the river. The water is very clear. You would find it hard to imagine this is the same river that once caught fire, but now it's a popular spot for local kayakers. So today's Cleveland, at least in its urban redevelopment, is no longer the dirty, dilapidated, and decaying image of the Rust Belt. It's now transitioning to a healthcare and service-based economy. The entire city's development is shifting towards a slower-paced, wellness-oriented lifestyle. Now, as my longtime viewers know, it's time for me to start nitpicking. I'm here to do industrial investment research, which means I need to talk to local people. But here, in the heart of the city, in broad daylight, you can't see a single person. See anyone? Anyone? Not a single person. So in all this time, the only 2 people we've seen were in that kayak, but they were on the water, so I couldn't talk to them. This made me desperate to find a group of locals to talk to find out what life is really like in Cleveland. So I'm going to take you to a place I loved on this trip, and I don't think it will disappoint you. A market with its mix of people from all walks of life shows you the raw, unvarnished truth of a city. Cleveland's oldest market, the West Side Market, is over 100 years old and has become a famous local landmark. Many of us are used to the industrialized efficiency of Whole Foods or Walmart, and have probably forgotten the feeling of an old market, with its free-form stalls and haggling. It gives you a feeling of traveling back in time. Especially when you enter the market's huge vaulted space, you realize it's not just a market. It's more like a multifunctional community center. There are people shopping, eating, walking with their kids, and then there are people like me who have come specifically to admire the old architecture. As someone from an architectural background, even when I'm on a business trip, I always make time to see the landmark buildings. Let me tell you about the architectural ingenuity here. What you see is a traditional brick-vaulted ceiling, very classical. But in reality, it's a full steel frame roof structure. It uses modern steel tension rods, but the interior is decorated with brick and stone tiles. Over 100 years ago, the aesthetic preference was for classical elegance, but the modern structure allows for a huge open-span space. You'll notice there isn't a single column between the stalls. Even in a modern supermarket today, you'll still see columns next to the aisles. This 100-year-old open-span design allows you to see from one end of the market to the other, making it easy to find your kids or your spouse. I also noticed that many of the customers in the market were seniors with silver hair, but they were very talkative. It might be because many of the young people have moved away, so when they see a visitor, they're happy to chat.
Here, I'll take it and send it to you. Are you sure? Yeah, I sent you a bunch this morning. Sorry.
They even recommended some very interesting local snacks to me, like this cream puff. It looks ordinary, but the texture is very special. The outer shell has a crispy, caramelized quality, almost like a crème brûlée, while the cream inside is cool, soft, and not too sweet. It's the pure flavor of cream. I suggest you grab a cup of coffee and sit on one of the benches outside to savor it. You won't regret it. Actually, besides the industrial investment research, I had a personal reason for coming to Cleveland. Ever since I was in school, I've dreamed of visiting the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So this was also a pilgrimage for me.
You guys want a picture?
We got it. We're good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Although Cleveland got its start in the oil industry, and its economic model seems rugged, its artistic and musical achievements are world-class and span generations. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, located on Cleveland's North Coast Harbor, has transformed rock and roll from what was once considered just an entertainment industry into a serious historical and archival institution. This world-class landmark was designed by the master architect I.M. Pei. The project was initiated in 1983 and, after 12 years, opened to the public in 1995. When you see those dates, you understand that this was a very wise decision made when Cleveland was already suffering from industrial decline and mired in the Rust Belt slump. They chose to pivot to culture and the arts. This, combined with their current focus as a medical capital, has become Cleveland's new identity. This building was a key case study in my 3D composition class in architecture school. Beyond its captivating form, what we study is its role in urban spatial transformation. The genius of this building is that it connects all the key scenic points on Cleveland's central axis into a single line. You can walk from the downtown axis all the way to the Hall of Fame, and after experiencing the powerful energy of rock and roll, you can cross the axis to the shore of Lake Erie, calm your mind, and enjoy a coffee with a beautiful view. On this trip, I was honestly a bit worried. In an era of fast music and quick money, would people still care about rock and roll? When I arrived, my fears were put to rest. The Hall of Fame is undergoing a massive expansion, which means the city has money and its transformation strategy is working. The parking lot was full. I guess they were all pilgrims like me, coming to pay their respects to the gods of rock. Next, I'm going to take you to a residential community that a local I met at the market highly recommended. He said, "If you love life, you will love this neighborhood." For those who are interested, let's go take a look. As I was admiring the architectural details of the market, an elderly gentleman came up to me and asked if I was an architecture student. We struck up a conversation. He was a local doctor, and he suggested I visit the lakeside residential area next to his home. And as you can see, I was absolutely amazed. I didn't want to leave. That doctor's recommendation was spot on. I later asked my local colleagues about it, and they told me it's Cleveland's most representative luxury residential area, home to 4 types of people: doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, and the second generation of the city's old money. I suspect the doctor who gave me the tip lives there himself. I was so happy to see this neighborhood because it was like a living museum of classic American residential architecture. In my previous video on architectural styles, I mentioned that these classic styles, Tudor, Craftsman, Colonial Revival, are becoming rarer because the craftsmanship they require is a dying art. But here they were all on display. I've always disliked the cookie-cutter, templated style of modern development. I love a street where every house has its own personality. I know some people might think it's better to tear down these old houses and build modern glass boxes. It's often cheaper and you get all new systems. But if possible, I believe that preserving these classic designs is a way of preserving wealth. You can modernize the interior while keeping the historic facade. This provides not just the material comfort of a home, but a much more valuable spiritual experience of living. I was so happy to see this classic residential community in Cleveland, and I'm very grateful for that doctor's recommendation. Coming from California, I can say that while the weather in the Great Lakes region may not be as good, the people here are incredibly warm, sincere, and down to earth. You don't see that much in California anymore. In closing, I want to share my feelings about the revival of this Rust Belt city. In the last episode, a viewer asked me to compare Pittsburgh and Cleveland. I think they have 2 different ways of living. Pittsburgh's urban renewal is like surgery. It has great universities, robotics, and AI, and it's transplanting new organs of development into the city to create new industries in a short amount of time. Cleveland, on the other hand, lacks Pittsburgh's high-tech moat, so it's not in a rush to do major surgery. Instead, it's taking a more holistic approach, optimizing its environmental resources like the waterfront as a foundation for its new identity in healthcare, lakeside communities, and the arts. These are all long-term investments. The shared challenge for both cities is how to retain their young people. A city's revival depends on them. So, if I could offer a blessing to Cleveland, I would borrow a famous line from the world of rock and roll. Stay forever young, and may your eyes always be filled with tears of joy. Our next episode in the Rust Belt series will continue east along the Great Lakes. We'll see you then. Thank you for your likes and subscriptions, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next exciting share.